So hopefully, over the last little while, you've gotten used to the Roman numerals and the rules involved. Some that are actual rules and some that we had to establish just to have every number have just one representation. The last thing that's left to do is to perform arithmetic in the Roman, or arithmetic with Roman numerals. Now, I will admit that as far as we know, the Romans didn't actually do it this way. They actually had little counters that they moved around on a counting board and then just wrote down their numbers when they found the answer to keep a record of it. But we'll do it completely in the Roman number system because it's so close to our decimal system. Stepping slightly outside of our comfort zone forces us to really think, how do we perform arithmetic? Because we're so used to going through the motions when we do it in the decimal numbers, we don't even think about what we're doing anymore. So we'll see how it sort of stops us a little bit and forces us to think a little bit more about how do we go about adding two numbers, subtracting, multiplying. We'll leave out division because it doesn't really contribute any insight. The three arithmetic operations are sufficient. So let's just look at them one by one. First addition. So now I have CLXV. I'll still use my plus, my familiar plus symbol. I'm not sure what they used at that time. And the other number is XVII. Now, here are the rules of the game. You are not allowed to write any decimal numbers anywhere on the board, /page, anything. Except for this, of course, that's okay. If you convert this to a decimal number, convert this to a decimal number, add them up, and then convert back, you will get 0. That is not the goal here. In fact, to try and enforce that, if I see any random decimal number written down, I subtract 1. Anyway, and there are only like 2 or 3 marks in this question. So the goal, I'm trying to force you to stay within the Roman number system and not do a conversion cheat, so to speak. So we're not going to decimals at all. We're staying in this. But it is underneath all these letters a decimal-based system. So instead of writing this, I can just line them up like I would normally. I just can't write decimal numbers. So the C is in the hundreds, then LX, I'll leave a little space to line things up more easily. Those are the tens, and then a V is in the ones. Then the next number I'm adding up, well, how would I do it normally? I would write them underneath each other. So I'm going to do the same thing. Lining up the places. X is in the tens, and VII is a ones representation. And I'll put a line under it, just like we normally would. The only difference is we are not allowed to go and convert these to decimal numbers. We have to stay within the Roman system. So the only way I can really enforce that in a test is if I see any decimal numbers anywhere, I start subtracting marks. That's really the only thing I can do, other than stand over your shoulder, which I won't do. So, how do, yes?
What about checking it? Or you just got to do it?
Well, you can check it in your head, but you can't write down anything. Because let's suppose now you write some numbers down and you say, oh, I checked it. How do I know for sure there was a check and not an attempt to find the answer? There's no way I can control that.
Okay.
So you can do it in your head, or you can convert, yeah. It's best to just not even bother, honestly. Because it's taking away from what this is trying to not teach us, but help us develop, which is really looking at how we add numbers. And we're stepping a little bit outside of our comfort zone to sort of become more aware of that. Everyone can add decimal numbers. We don't even think about it anymore. We need to stop and think so that we can become more effective at teaching it. Okay, well, what's our method? The method stays the same. The method is start with the ones and add up this column, get an answer. Now I do think of the quantity in our language. I do think of 5 plus 7. But this is the ones column. So even though the answer is 12, I'm not going to write 12 there. What would we do in the decimal system? This is still a decimal system. The 10 is too big. The 2 stays. This 10 is carried over to the tens column. The method is the same. I'm just becoming a little more aware of it because it's a little less familiar. Now I'm adding up in the tens column. I have a 10, I have a 60, that's 70, I have another 10, that's 80. That's within my tens column, and I write down the representation for 80, which happens to just be all those letters together. But I didn't have an answer big enough to push me to have something that carries over, so it's just 100 in the hundreds column, and there's my answer. The spacing between them doesn't matter. It's the same method. We're really just practicing our method to add two numbers, like we would in the decimal case. There's no difference, other than we're looking at letters and writing down letters. Underneath, everything's exactly the same. So we're really practicing that. And just making sure we know exactly how each step goes. Any questions on that? So once you see the similarities, it's really not hard at all. So now I'll just start writing these down one underneath the other, because that's what we're going to do anyway. Now I have CCCIX. So I have the CCC in my hundreds. IX is a ones number, or a unit number, plus, I'll write the plus here. We'll use our familiar symbols. VII, well that's just in the ones column, and I'm set up. I'm not going to write them next to each other because then I'm making it more difficult for myself. Lining them up like this is what we would teach as well. So now I have 9 plus 7 in our language. I know that's 16. So that means the 10 is going to get, no, not carried over there. This is the hundreds column, the ones. Where should the 10 go? There's a tens column that I should leave a space for that just wasn't really shown in my number. So there's a little space there, and then the hundreds. I'm not squishing them together as if that space isn't there. That space is always there. In our decimal system, there would be a 0. But here there are no zeros. So I need to be aware to leave a space. So now my 16 gets a 10 carried over, and the representation for 6. There's nothing else in the tens column, so it's just 10, and there's nothing else in the hundreds column, and I'm done. So there are differences, but they're very slight and easy to keep track of, I think. Any questions? Easy, not easy? Doable? And here we're not going to go crazy with big numbers or anything, because we're trying to just remember or become more aware of the basic method. If I have more letters here to make the number bigger, the method doesn't change. So I don't need to have the numbers too big. If I can do it for a few columns, I can do it for many more. It doesn't change at all. So we're not going to go crazy with the size of the number. C. Now I just have to line them up correctly. MM is thousands piece. CD, that's definitely hundreds. XC, that is a tens, that's 90. And a 6, DI. So I didn't have anything that's missing that I need to leave a space for. Plus 5,000, that's still in my thousands here. Oh, there's more thousands. Okay, so let me just group them nicely together. Those are all thousands. CC, that's in the hundreds. L, that is a tens. And 2 ones. Again, you don't have to do this, but that's how you'll be teaching it. That's how they started. Line everything up and count them right to left. So we're really trying to practice that method to be more effective and understand every step. Because when little Timmy sees it, he's seeing it for the first time, and it's extremely foreign. So making this a little more foreign to us gives us an appreciation of the steps and how difficult it must be doing this for the first time. We're so used to it, we don't even think about it. But to teach it, we need to think. So we have 6 and another 2, that's 8. That's good enough for my ones column. Nothing's carrying over. Now I have 90 plus 50. For getting you to contribute. I don't need to do everything. So I can't help but do it in my language, right? 90 plus 50 is 140. Now I just have to write it down. So 100 goes over and 40 stays. 40 is XL. So we're not really doing it completely in the Roman number system. I don't know what they called all these. Our language is our language. We just can't write it down. Now I have 100 and a 400. That's 500, 600, 700. Oh, that's good enough for the hundreds. Nothing's carried over. So it's not a matter of just counting all the C's and counting all the D's and putting them together. Because this is a special pair. This C doesn't add to the other C's. With the D, the CD means 400. So I have to look at each number representation and add that up. And now I have 2,000 and a 7,000. That gives me obviously 9,000. The representation for 9,000.
X with the line on it.
1,000 less than 10,000. So I do the addition and then just do the representation that matches my arithmetic. So just a little less familiar, forcing me to really go through the steps and becoming more aware of what those steps are. That's all we're trying to do. Yes?
Do you want us to put it all together nicely at the end?
No, you can leave it like that if you want to. The spacing's irrelevant. Yeah. Doesn't matter at all. Any other questions or comments? Anyone not sure? I want to make sure of this before we go to subtraction, which is a little more difficult in comparison, and of course then multiplication. So I want to be happy with addition first before moving on. We have loads of time. Loads of time. This is all I want to do today. That's all I want to do. Nope, just arithmetic. Any questions, comments? I just want to get through them all, and then we can look back.
Oh, so we are doing it.
We're doing all of those arithmetic questions. We're not moving on to the next chapter. But even that's not going to take that long. Everyone happy with addition? All right. Let's then move on to some subtraction examples. These are some, and we can of course make up our own. It's just 3 random ones. And again,
Yeah.
the rules are the same, that I'm not allowed to write any decimal number other than the question number. Any decimal number to help me with the problem. It says, perform the following arithmetic calculation within the Roman number system. Test question might say, if any number outside that system is on the page, marks may be deducted. Trying to force you to stay within this system. All right, C. So again, I'm lining up. The setup is the same, so I might as well do that right away. C is the hundreds. LX is definitely a tens. Give yourself some space to work. Spacing doesn't matter for Roman numbers. And a V. That's a ones for sure. Minus, I'll use the same familiar minus symbol. I don't know what they use. IX. IX is definitely a ones column number. So give yourself enough space so this doesn't feel like it's overlapping in the tens column. You can see your columns clearly. Make your life easier. That's why we set it up like that. To make it easier for ourselves. Now in subtraction, remember this is an underlying decimal system, so the method should be the same, and it is. What do we do? Well, I have 5 things here. Taking away 9 things, it's not enough. I don't have enough. What do I do?
All over the 10 from.
I go and borrow 1 from this column, but this column, 1 is a 10. So I'm borrowing an X. Then with, I guess we'll write it over here. Now I have an X, which is a 10, with my 5. Put a circle around it. This is now what I have to take 9 away from. And what I'm left with here, let's write it over here, is just a 50. Because I took the X away. Now I have a 15, taking away 9 is totally fine. 15 take away 9, and I'm left with, oops, just 6, not 7. Now there's nothing I subtract in my tens column, so just the 50s left, and just the 100 is left as well. So it's forcing us to just be a little more aware of the borrowing method, because in our decimal system it's almost so convenient with the ones, and we put the 1 in the right spot and read that as a number, we forget what we're actually doing. And we're not teaching little computers that just go through without any understanding. We want to be very clear in what that borrowing is doing and how it's changing the numbers. All right. B. Just switch this. A little longer number. That could make it easier or more difficult. I don't know. 3 C's in my hundreds column. I'm just going to move this lower. 3 C's. 3 X's. And then a 6 with a VI. What am I taking away? I'm taking away a C, an LXX, that is a tens number, and an IX is a ones number. setup. Again, if I don't line these things up correctly, I'm probably going to make a mistake. That is definitely step one. Everyone happy with my lining up? No one really looks very happy. Isn't this easier than the big numbers from yesterday? I think it's a little, no, it's not? Different? Different could be better. No? Change is never good? No. It's nice that the numbers aren't getting big. I kind of like that. No, it's just me. Start from right to left. So I have a 6 at the top. That's the quantity that's represented here. I'm taking away 9. Clearly that's not enough. So I'm going to take one of these guys and borrow it for that column. Then this is only 2 x's. And now I have a larger quantity that I can take 9 away from. My quantity is now 16. Take away 9, leaves 7. I just want you to be a part of this. It's not me just standing here, just doing it. Now I have only 20 left, and I'm taking away 70. Clearly that's not enough. Don't have enough. So what do I have to do? I go to my next column and borrow 100. Now I have only 200 left in that column. But in the tens column, I now have 120. Take away 70 is totally fine. And I'm left with 50. So it's not just a matter of canceling letters. The letters change depending on the quantity. And it could be as simple as canceling some letters, or it could be a totally different letter. And then I move on to my hundreds column, take away 1c from 2, and I'm left with 1c. And notice that I have never even done anything in decimal, in our decimal system. If I follow the method, which is pretty much the same method, there is no need, I don't check anything. Stay in the Roman numbers. If you really understand the steps in subtraction, there would be no need to step outside the number system. Little Timmy has no choice. He doesn't have another number system. That is the one he learns, the decimal system. That's the only number system. He can't go and do another system unless he counts with little stones, I guess. There's no option but to follow the method. Any questions on B? I'm sensing that it is easy. No? It's so quiet. It's my only conclusion. One more for subtraction. C, let me turn the camera. C is a hundreds, X is a tens, I is a ones. Take away. L is a tens number, or quantity. Oh, X as well. LX, and a V. Right to left. The 1 is not enough for the V, so I go and borrow a 10. Now I have nothing left. Now here I have the quantity that we call 11. Take away 5 is totally fine, and I have 6 left. Now I have nothing in the middle tens column. They don't have a 0. There is no symbol for 0. Wasn't really part of their number language. They had no need for it. They just have empty space. So I have nothing and I'm taking away something, that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to borrow one of the hundreds, and now I have nothing left there. But at least in the tens column, I now have this 100 that can help me. 100 take away 60. 40, representation for 40. XL. There's nothing here to do anything with. Method's the same, always the same. And it's kind of nice, comforting, when the method is always the same. You know, if I just go through the steps, I'm going to find the answer. There's no mystery here. I'm not doing different things every time. It's always the same. It's kind of boring, really. It's always the same. But that makes it easy. And easy is probably good. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, compliments? No, went too far. I'm sorry. Of course, the next is multiplication. A favorite, but I will save you the division and we'll stop at multiplication. It's exercise 5.8. Now I'm going to do, let's review. Before we do this one, let's just review the method for multiplication. Because different people write it in different ways. Random to 3-digit number. Random.
328.
328. Single digit.
9.
9. Different people do different things. I want to do the detailed one, which I would definitely do for little Timmy right away. And only when they're very comfortable you write down less and less and less, because they can keep track of it in their head. Detailed one is I take the number here, multiply it by the right digit. 9 times 8 is 72. Then, because I'm now multiplying the 9 with the tens, my answer is going to start here, and I pad it with a 0. Some people don't write the 0, and it causes alignment issues. 9 times 2 is 18. Then I'm going to multiply 9 with the hundreds. My answer is going to start here, so I pad it with 2 zeros, because my answer is going to be something 100, in the hundreds. 9 times 3 is 27. Then I add these together in the normal way. I like the detailed approach because everything's there to see. Yes, once you're comfortable with it, you do little things and write some digits over here, but that's not clear in any way unless you already are comfortable with the method. And teaching, we can't assume that little Timmy necessarily is. So I'm going to do it this way for total clarity. It's no different than the short method. That method just writes down less, and I don't want to make it more difficult or less clear. And we are also going to keep the second number fairly simple, like 10 or less, because 10 is so easy. But let's for now just use a 5. So I have 2 x's in my tens column, and then 3 i's. And I'm just going to write here times, because my times symbol might look like an X, and that could be confusing. Was it 5, right? So here's my setup, still lining everything up. I'm not going to worry about big numbers here with double-digit multiplication, anything like that. If you can do the simple one, the bigger numbers just take longer, it's no different. So I say do the same thing now. 5 is the quantity here, times 3 in my language. I know that's 15. How do I represent 15? X in a V. 15. Now when I multiply this number with the next column number, it's going to start over there. I don't have a 0. Don't write a 0, that's a decimal number. There is just space. Unfortunately, there is no 0. So that is it. 20 times 5. Oh, that's so easy. 20 times 5.
100.
I thought you said 1. 100. Just line it up. There are no zeros. They didn't have a need to have a symbol for 0. So as long as you have the spaces and everything lined up, it's all good, and there's literally almost nothing to do. Sometimes the addition is really easy. Just maybe the spaces make it look a little strange. And it is a little different in that I can't reduce that number to a 2, to a units number. I have to look at it as 20, just to be safe. So there's a little bit of difference, but the basic method is the same. Let's do one more. Let's see if there are questions. Oh, I only have 2. Oh, I was lazy that day. DCC, that's definitely in the hundreds. LXX, tens. And IX is a ones number times. I won't write a time symbol there because depending on your spacing in the test, I could confuse it for an X and then be very confused. And I don't want to be confused. Times a B again. All right. Let's do it. 9 times 5. Should we have a day where we practice some arithmetic? Why do I suspect we should? We can't do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's Play-Doh day. That's an actual thing. It's called Play-Doh day.
XLV.
Well, I do it in my language first, right? It's 45. So the 40 would go over here. XL and 5. Everyone happy with that? And then I line it up as I need to line it up. Then I go to the number times the tens number, which means I'll start over there. I can't write a 0, just empty space. 5 times 70. 350. So 350. So I do need to have some mental arithmetic skill. And you should start with that. Oh well. And of course, if you're thinking 5 times 70, you can of course do that on your calculator. I can't stop you doing things like that. You just can't write down the decimal numbers. You always have your calculator there. Some people don't allow a calculator in a course like this, but I don't know, I think that's a little something I don't want to say on camera. 5 times 700. Oh, it's 700 again. That's kind of nice. 5 times 700? 3,500 or 3,500. Just line it up correctly. So yes, the numbers are getting a little bigger in my multiplication, but if you line it up correctly, everything is pretty much manageable. Now I'm going to add up all these numbers. Because of the shifting that takes place, the addition is actually, for the most part, very straightforward. There's nothing to add there. Here, there might be a little bit. 40 plus 50.
XC.
That still fits. 90 still fits in this column. I just have to write the correct representation. So it's not XLL because I'm just grouping letters together. It doesn't work like that. I have to look at the quantities that it represents. Now I have a 300 and a 500. That's, in this case, is just pooling all the letters together. But it doesn't have to be every time. And then my 3,000, which is not added to anything, and I'm done. Oh, that was not a double line. That's very good. Piece of cake.